Hello and welcome to the big by-election debate. I'm Lewis Warner and this is a simulcast on Staffs TV and One Media Radio.
And I'm Joe Thompson. We're coming to you live and uninterrupted from Staffordshire University's Leek Road venue. The questions are in, the stage is set, and the candidates are just about getting ready, leaving us some time to remind you of why this is all taking place.
Of course, last month, the former Labour leadership hopeful, Tristram Hunt, resigned. Not just his seat, but politics altogether. He went on to become director at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. Now, his shock resignation, of course, left the people of Stoke-on-Trent without a voice in Parliament.
Well, they won't be without a voice for much longer, but whose voice will it be? We can take a look now at the full list of all the candidates that you can vote for in this by-election.
OK, Joe, we'll start in no particular order with Councillor Jack Brereton, who hopes to be standing firmly behind Prime Minister Theresa May in Parliament. He's the Conservative candidate for the seat.
We have the new UKIP leader, Paul Nuttall, who's hoping to win this seat from Labour. In the last election, his party came a very close second, just 5,000 odd votes between them.
The first of our two independent candidates now, Mohammed Akram. He'll be standing for your vote on February the 23rd. However, he's not going to be taking part in tonight's debate. He's the only candidate to not take part in this debate.
The Green Party have put forward local man Adam Colclough as their candidates. They'll be hoping to take their number of MPs in Parliament from 1 to 2 with a win here in Stoke Central.
Godfrey Davies is the candidate for the Christian People's Alliance.
Our second independent candidate asking for your vote is Barbara Fielding.
And hoping to defend this seat from them all is Gareth Snell for the Labour Party. This seat has been Labour since the boundaries were drawn up in the 1950.
Now, we've all heard of him. The Flying Brick is back in a ridiculously tall hat. He's standing, of course, for the monster Raving Loony Party. That's not me being rude to the party. That is what they're actually called.
There we are, the announcement just saying that the debate will be starting very shortly. And finally, the Liberal Democrats have picked their man for the second time running. Dr. Zulfiqar Ali is asking you to vote yellow next week.
And last but by no means least, David Furness is contesting the seat for the British National Party.
So just to let you know how things are going to happen tonight, the moderator this evening is Martin Tiswell, who's editor-in-chief at your local newspaper, The Sentinel. Joining him on stage will be a man who's no stranger to these type of events. You can't keep him away. It's Professor of Journalism and Politics at Staffordshire University, Mick Temple. He'll be joining them on the stage later. And Joe, we now know, can we see Gareth Snell for Labour and Paul Nuttall for UKIP drowning out the other candidates?
I think there's definitely that possibility. It's very much being billed as a two-horse race between Gareth Snell for Labour and Paul Nuttall for UKIP. Not to be disrespectful to the other parties, but I anticipate sparks flying, particularly between those two candidates. There's a lot of pressure on the two of them to look strong and make sure that they come out on top, in particular in comparison to either Labour or UKIP.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be very interesting this evening. The hall is slowly filling up here. There have been some traffic problems on the A500, which has meant the debate was delayed for about 15 minutes, but it's, like I say, it's beginning to fill up. Joe, you've spoken to some of the candidates already during this campaign, haven't you? So what do you think of some of the highlights so far?
Well, we've got Dr. Zulfiqar Ali running for the Liberal Democrats, of course, a major political party in the UK. Not too long ago, they were, in fact, in government. Dr. Ali is very much putting forward his views on the NHS. That's his main policy going forward in this election and indeed this debate. Of course, you don't want to forget Jack Brereton from the Conservatives, quite an understated figure, but we spoke to him yesterday and he does have a lot to say about Stoke-on-Trent and his ideas for the constituency going forward.
There have been a number of debates, as we can see now, the candidates taking place on stage. We will now go to Martin Tiswell, Editor-in-Chief at The Sentinel, for the start of the debate. Let's go to the debate.
First of all, for your patience. As I said earlier, we do have a situation on the roads here in Stoke-on-Trent tonight. I seem to say that a lot lately with the A500. So a lot of you may well have battled through traffic to get here. And I'm probably aware that in the next 15 minutes, other members of the audience will turn up and hopefully creep into their seats. But first and foremost, a very warm welcome to the LRV here at Staffordshire University for what promises to be a very interesting evening, or hustings ahead of the Stoke Central by-election. If you're not from Stoke-on-Trent, let me welcome you warmly to the city of the Spitfire, Sir Stanley Matthews, Robbie Williams, and the best pottery in the world. So for those who don't know me, my name is Martin Tideswell. I'm the editor of the Sentinel newspaper, and it's my pleasure to be with you this evening. Thanks to my colleagues from Staffordshire University for being so wonderfully accommodating. I've got a few bits of housekeeping. I'll just get them out of the way now. We are not expecting a fire alarm. If there is a fire alarm of some kind, the doors to either side of us will open. Please make your way sensibly outside. And the other thing to say is toilets are outside through the double doors at the back there. The bar isn't open this evening, you'll be pleased to know, and the doors will remain closed once you're in, unless you particularly need to leave for any reason. So we hope that tonight's debate will be conducted in a pleasant, robust, but amicable atmosphere. I'd also like to say a personal thank you to all of the candidates who are able to join us tonight. 8 of them, 8 of the 10, have given up their time to be with you tonight. And I need to mention the other 2 candidates, who are Mohammed Akram and Barbara Fielding, who for a variety of reasons are not able to be with us this evening. So the debate is being filmed and live streamed, and of course covered in tomorrow's Sentinel newspaper. Now, before each of the candidates introduces themselves, I'd like to pass over to my colleague Mick Temple, who is a professor of journalism and also politics here at Staffordshire University. You come here at a very interesting time, and I think it's okay for Mick to probably set the scene for us.
Thank you. Okay, we're heading towards what will be one of the most important political elections in British political history, and that is no exaggeration for once. The world's watching. There are about 60 media organisations, including all our major broadcasters, who are going to be at the count on February the 23rd. Now, with respect to many of the people here, many of the candidates here, they're not coming in the expectation of a surprise victory for the monster Raving Loony party. They are coming... I do apologise. They're coming here because of the immediate and possibly long-term repercussions for 2 major political parties. Stoke Central has been Labour since 1950, and it won't be here in 2020 if the Boundary Commission goes ahead, which it probably will. So you may well ask, what's the fuss? The reason there's such a fuss is because the message that Stoke Central voters are going to send to the political elite and to the country have far-reaching repercussions. By-elections, by the way, are usually just rubber stamp things that are happening. Very occasionally, Eastbourne in 1990 is an example, they produce a political earthquake. The Tories lost a 16,000 majority in Eastbourne, and a month later, Margaret Thatcher was no longer Prime Minister. It was that momentous. And this election could have equally momentous consequences. Not just for the future of Jeremy Corbyn, if Labour lose. If Labour can't hold Stoke Central in its heartland, the question will be asked, where on earth can it win? And these questions have been asked many times before, and Labour's bounced back. The questions will be asked about, is Labour ever going to rule again if it can't win Stoke Central? On the other hand, if Labour wins, that success will encourage them to believe that their message will succeed in convincing the British public that Labour can rule. For UKIP, another major political party, the party who are responsible for Brexit largely, have to give them their due there, whatever side of the argument you're on. If they lose, and given Theresa May's increasing impact on Brexit, the question is going to be asked, what do we need UKIP for anymore? The Tories are going to deliver Brexit anyway. But if they win, UKIP's dream of a populist political party supporting the British working class becomes a possibility. The Conservatives, of course, still feel they can win, but if not, they can shrug it off anyway. Some people might say they prefer Labour to win because they won't be faced then with the problem of UKIP. But I'm going to conclude on this. When you think how many experts have called wrongly in the past, I called, by the way, I've got to admit it, I called 2015 wrongly, I called the EU referendum wrongly, and I didn't call Trump. So I'm probably way off the mark here by concentrating on those two political parties. Maybe Stoke-on-Trent Central voters are going to deliver a huge surprise. Who knows? The key thing, of course, is turnout. In 2012, in a very similar seat in Manchester Central, only 18% of the electorate turned out. Give that sort of figure in Stoke-on-Trent, and the consequences, possibly for Labour, might be drastic. So what I'm going to say is, whoever you support, exercise your vote, because for once it really matters.
Thank you. Mick Temple, ladies and gentlemen. So we thought we'd start off this evening, ladies and gentlemen, by giving each of the candidates 60 seconds, and it will be 60 seconds, to pitch to you and also the audience that's watching live as to why the people of Stoke Central should vote for them. So in no particular order, I'm going to go off a list that I was given earlier today. First up, I'm going to invite Paul Nuttall from UKIP to say a few words. Paul, your 60 seconds.
Thank you. The one word that we keep hearing on doorsteps is change. People feel forgotten. They feel left behind by the political system, in particular globalisation. What I believe I bring to the table is a national voice. I'm a national party leader. When I stand up in the House of Commons, people will listen. I will get things done. On June the 23rd, the people of Stoke-on-Trent kicked back. They voted against the establishment. They voted for Brexit. In many ways, they became the capital of Brexit, with 70% voting to leave the European Union. If people go out on February the 23rd and vote UKIP and get a UKIP MP, Stoke-on-Trent will become the capital of change. We can do this. We're running a strong campaign, and I genuinely believe there is an appetite out there to kick back against the establishment that has forgotten people for so long.
Thank you, Mr. Nuttall. I'd now like to invite Godfrey Davies from the Christian People's Alliance for his 60 seconds.
Hello. I'm new to politics. I joined this party 7 months ago, and I intend to do politics in a very different way, totally different. Politics can be boiled down to two basic questions: philosophy and economics. And we approach both those aspects in a very different way to politics as normal. What your political belief is, the philosophy, we believe that the liberal society, the liberal agenda that's overtaken our culture has been a disaster for the country. And our party is determined to bring back traditional Christian values.
Thank you, Mr. Davies. That's probably a good place to leave it. That's your 60 seconds. Thank you. Next up, could we have 60 seconds, please, from Dr. Zulfiqar Ali from the Liberal Democrats?
Thank you. I live within the city. I've served as a councillor from one of the wards in this constituency, and I'm very passionate about Stoke-on-Trent Central. I'm the only candidate from the major political parties who is opposing the unholy alliance of hard Brexit. I'm worried about the future. I'm worried about the jobs. That's why I'm standing up for you people to have a final say on final Brexit deal. I also want to campaign and to have more funds for our local NHS, so we can have more beds, more nurses, and more doctors, so there are less waiting times in accident and emergency department.
Thank you, Dr. Ali. Now it's the turn of Gareth Snell from Labour.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you. I would like to be the Member of Parliament for Stoke-on-Trent Central because the Potteries is my home. It's where I met my wife, Sophia, and where we're raising our 6-year-old daughter, Hannah, who was born at the Royal Stoke Hospital. I wasn't born in the Potteries, but it's where I spent the last 13 years of my life, and they've been the happiest of my life. But I also want to stand up for Stoke-on-Trent and the Potteries. I want to campaign for the homes that we need and the jobs that we want. I want to fight for a publicly funded NHS, and I want to deliver the Brexit that Stoke-on-Trent deserves, not what London will give it. And I want the Potteries to be a place where my daughter will have a chance to make her life in the future. I believe we need a strong local voice speaking up for the people of the Potteries. We need someone who can go to Westminster and represent the people of Stoke-on-Trent, not somebody that's going to come to Stoke-on-Trent to represent Westminster. And that is why I would like to be your next MP. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Snell. We'll now hear from Jack Brereton, the Conservative candidate.
Thank you, Martin. I'm born and bred in Stoke-on-Trent. I've lived in this city my entire life, and I already am the only candidate who represents part of this constituency in the council. And it would be a great honour and privilege to represent the people of Stoke Central in Parliament. I've already been working hard for the people of Stoke-on-Trent. I'm responsible for delivering over £500 million of investment, which is making this great city even better. And that's delivering jobs in this city. We've delivered 1,000 jobs in the Ceramic Valley Enterprise Zone only in the last year, and I'll ensure that we deliver 8,000 more over the next 5 years. But this election comes at an important time for Stoke-on-Trent and our entire country. This constituency voted overwhelmingly to leave the European Union, and our Prime Minister, Theresa May, has a clear plan to deliver Brexit. Only last week, I met with Theresa May, and she assured me that we will make a success of Brexit for Stoke-on-Trent and our country.
Thank you, Councillor Brereton. Now we move on to the Monster Raving Loony Party's candidate, the incredible Flying Brick.
Thank you, Martin. That's very kind of you. I'm very, very pleased to be here. It's great fun. I always love by-elections. This is my 4th by-election as a candidate, and I've been an election agent for Howling Lord Hope, our party leader, at numerous occasions. I thought I might just read the BNP speech because it's sat here right next to me. So we are the only genuine anti-establishment party. Thank you. Anyway, I think I'm really a single-issue politician. I want to abolish gravity. This is really it's due to vendetta because I started in 1997 with politics at the same time I took up paragliding, but unfortunately I had to give up paragliding when I had an accident in 2002. So I've been campaigning against gravity ever since.
Thank you to the incredible Flying Brick. Thank you. Next up we have from the Green Party, Adam Colclough.
Thank you very much. My accent tells you it all. I was born in Stoke. I know that our city needs a different type of politics, one based on the things that unite us, not the things that divide us. We need an MP who will fight to protect our NHS services, who will fight to bring good jobs to the city, and given the problems we've had tonight, who will do something about ending gridlock on our roads. Stoke is a great city. With the Green Party fighting its corner, we can make it even greater still.
Thank you, Mr. Colclough. And finally, from the BNP, David Furness.
Well, as you've heard, is it on? Is this? Can you hear me? All right. As you've already heard, I'm the only genuine anti-establishment candidate in this election. Now, the voters of Stoke Central now have a unique opportunity to send the strongest possible message of protest to the out-of-touch and London-centric political establishment. Out of the EU, has been a BNP policy since 1982, the longest of any other party. So that makes me the true Brexiteer candidate in this election. I'm the only candidate that wants a halt to all immigration until further notice, until we can build homes for the people already here, until we can give employment for the people already here. I'm also the only candidate that will speak up about Islamic extremism.
Thank you, Mr. Furness. That's your minute. Thank you. Thank you to all our candidates, and thank you to the audience for listening so patiently. I have had some submitted questions via email and social media this afternoon, which I'm going to get to later. But for now, I'm going to throw questions open to the floor. Before I do, a bit of market research. Put your hands in the air if you... bit quick that was. If you live and are able to vote in the Stoke Central by-election.
Not half.
Super, thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you. Right, the way this is going to work, ladies and gentlemen, is if you raise your hand if you wish to ask a question of the candidates. We have people walking the floor with microphones and they will come to you. Don't be shy. Once you've asked your question of a particular candidate, please give the microphone back to our staff and we can move on and get through as many questions as we're able. So, do we have any questions from the floor? Gentleman at the front, thank you.
Question to you, Martin. Why didn't the Sentinel cover the event at Victoria Hall last Monday? And part two, what are the views of Gareth on the anti-Jewish abuse that one of the Jewish Orthodox members of UKIP party had to face when he arrived at Victoria Hall? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. So the first question was about the Sentinel not covering an event at the Victoria Hall. Forgive me, which event was that? So we did cover it, but it was only a small picture. I see, right, okay. I'll probably speak to you privately about that separately. I mean, we're doing a lot of election coverage. We do our best, so is all I would say. But I think the other question was to Gareth. Gareth, do you want to come back on that?
I'm happy to answer the question. I mean, I'll condemn any form of abuse that's raised to anybody about anything that might make... Well, thank you very much for that. The point... Well, I'm happy to have a debate, but we can't have it if people are shouting at each other. That's the first part I think we need to get this evening sorted by. Look, if people are receiving abuse, then that's simply unacceptable. You know, we want to live in a tolerant society where we look at what unites us and what brings us together and what we have in common. I don't want to live in a place that's divided and where hatred comes forth. I don't want to live in a place where people are demonised for how they're different. I want to live in a place where we look at how we can all work together and cooperate for the common good. So if there were instances that have taken place in the city towards anybody, then I will always condemn them.
Thank you. The gentleman with the, I'm going to say, lumberjack shirt. Thank you.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Bruce Young. I came all this way from North London just wanted to ask Gareth, I'm a Labour supporter, by the way, and I wanted to ask Gareth a serious question. What are your plans to integrate people with autism into the wider community? I have autism myself. And would you need a safe local NHS or to be able to manage this? And good luck with holding a safe Labour seat. I wish you all the best of luck with it. Good luck!
I mean, this is going to be really interesting for me if every question's for me, but I'm more than happy with that. Look, I mean, we have a problem with the integration of social care in NHS, not just in Stoke-on-Trent, but across the country. And what we find, particularly with people that have mental health conditions and need support that isn't for a physical impairment or ailment, that just isn't being given. There is no support there for that. You know, there are people in Stoke-on-Trent who are waiting 11, 12, 13 months just to get an assessment for help that they need, and that's wrong. So the first thing that I think we need to do is we need to start looking at how we can build in more money for preventative help and support so that people that need that help and support can get it before it becomes an acute problem. But specifically on autism...
Autism cannot be prevented, Martin. Sorry, Gareth. His question is about autism.
I know, I'm getting to that, but thank you very much, Dr. Ali. But particularly on the issue of autism, I mean, there's some excellent work being done to look at how we can, particularly through education of people who don't have autism, to know how to properly help people with autism, because it's not something that anybody of us will be an expert about unless you've been taught how to help people. So part of it, I think, is about making sure that we, as people, need to be educated so best to be told how we can help people integrate into society who have that autism issue. Thank you,
Gareth. There's a lady in the centre here who had her hand up. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm particularly interested in social care, and I'd like to ask all the candidates, not just Gareth, about about what your first priority on getting to Westminster would be, about how we help to increase the availability of social care in Stoke-on-Trent.
Thank you. So to give Gareth a break, we're going to start very quickly, and if you could all be very brief, because questions to all the candidates are going to take some time. So from the left, the Green Party.
Thank you very much. Well, the first thing we need to do is give more support to carers so that people who need social care can stay at home for longer and maintain their independence. And that is something I would be taking up with a social care minister who, in the Commons, said that, oh, well, families should just carry more of a burden. What does he think families have been doing all along? I've been a carer and know exactly how much weight rests on those people's shoulders, and they're the ones I'd be fighting for at Westminster.
Thank you. Dr. Ali.
I'm going to campaign to have increased funding both for NHS and social care. At this time, social care has separate budget than NHS. So as a result, social care is not able to provide social care which they are supposed to, and people spend more time in hospitals, which cost NHS more money. So I would be championing increased integration and increased funding for both departments.
Thank you. Mr. Nuttall.
I tend to agree with Dr. Ali. The problem that you have with social care and healthcare is that they're not integrated. So very often the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, and because of cuts, there's an estimated 1 million beds which are taken up at the moment across the NHS, whereby people literally do not have anywhere to go back into the community. I want to see more money go into social care. Our party is committed to £1.2 billion every single year. And I know in this community there is a problem with zero-hour contracts, particularly with carers. I'm absolutely committed to the abolition of zero-hour contracts. They have no place in 21st century Britain.
Thank you, Mr. Nuttall.
Well, it's absolutely critical that we see further integration of health and social care. And the Conservative government is investing an additional £900 million just this year into social care to provide more places for social care. Locally, the City Council is investing £2.3 million every single year to create over 100 more social care staff. And that is really important, getting more social care places for our elderly. But what I would do is I'd have regular meetings with our CCGs to ensure that we're working effectively to get the best services in Stoke-on-Trent, to ensure that health and social care is much more effectively integrated, and ensure that the patient is always put first.
Thanks, Sarah. I mean, without sounding, we can just repeat the things. I mean, the first thing that I think that we need to do is we need to stop putting a lot of this stuff out to a private contractor. I think the problem that we have is if we're spending £10 on social care, why should £2 of it go on profit? Too much of our health service is being slowly and quietly privatised by letting a contract here and letting a contract there. Yes. And actually what that's doing is fragmenting the health service, and meaning that money is being spent in places it shouldn't be. But also we need to move away from this flawed model. Jack, I take no lessons off the Tory party on the NHS. You have screwed it up before.
You'd have invested £1.3 billion less in our NHS at the last election.
The Tory party's been cutting the NHS since its existence.
What about Stafford, Gareth? On your watch, on Labour's watch.
Look, I mean, Jack, we can have... There is absolutely no way that the Labour Party, who created the NHS, will take lessons from the Tory party on how to save it. You messed it up before, and we will save it again. But the fact of the matter is, going back to Sarah's point on social care, We need to move away from the flawed model that sees carers being limited to 15-minute windows to make a cup of tea and give pills to somebody in need, rather than having the time that they need to care. And that's why the Labour Party is committed to reforming the way that works and giving a proper amount of time for carers to deliver the care that they need. Jack, in part, was right before his little attempt to make out like the Tory party cares about the NHS, and that is that we do need, and that is that we do need to make sure that it is patient-centred.
Thank you, Councillor Snell. Thank you.
Well, it's obviously a very emotive subject. I'd take a radical approach. I'd convert the civic buildings, the town hall, into an extraterrestrial spaceport and import some carers from some very interesting places in the rest of the universe and intergalactic dimensions. And I'm deadly serious about that.
Thank you to the incredible flying break. Thank you. Mr. Furness.
The first thing to say is no privatisation in the National Health Service. National Health Service is a great British institution, so hands off. Also, look what happened to cleaning services when they outsourced it. It got worse. I believe we should stop foreign aid. It's 12 billion a year to 20 of the most corrupt nations on earth, and we should use that money to rebuild the National Health Service. Now, I've noticed none of the other candidates has mentioned the effects of immigration on the National Health Service.
Oh.
None of them. Thank you. We are taking doctors...
If we can let
what about immigrant care workers?
We are taking doctors and nurses from third world countries. Those countries need those medical staff more than we do. By taking those staff, we have indirectly contributed to the deaths of untold numbers of people. African...
Excuse me, if we can have no shouting from the floor. You're happy to put your hands up in a moment, but let him finish. Thank you.
We're stealing medical staff from countries that need them more than we do. So we are, even Nelson Mandela said when he was alive, stop stealing our people. That's what he said. We should train our own doctors and our own nurses. Train our own doctors and our own nurses. British jobs for British workers. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but by no means least, Mr. Davies.
Health and social care. In a nutshell, we will want to fund this so that there's a free NHS and efficient. We'll focus on that. Now, how are we going to fund that? I believe that we need fundamental reform of the banking system before, and that'll solve a lot of problems. And the other aspect is that because the liberal agenda, the increasing liberalisation of the country, to a large extent has made the society dysfunctional, and it has a very negative effect on both physically and mentally on the nation. And I believe that if we come back to godly standards, the old traditional Christian values, then that'll have a dramatic effect on the health and well-being of this nation.
Thank you, Mr. Davies. Thank you. Next question, please, from the floor. Let's go with the young man here with the green hoodie. Thank you.
Hello. I have a question for Dr. Nuttall. Sorry, I mean Mr. Nuttall. You've been asked this twice before, but can you now name the 6 towns of Stoke-on-Trent?
Burslem, Hanley, Stoke, Fenton, Tunstall, Longton.
Thank you.
And which one do you live in?
Well, unfortunately, I have to live at a secret address at the moment because of hoodlums who are trying to break in. And in the post-Joe Cox era, what a terrible way to have to live.
I've lived in Peggle these 30 years. I've not seen any of these hoodlums around the village.
Absolute disgrace.
Excuse me, thank you. Next question, the lady who's had her hands up in the middle for a while there. Vandra, if you could walk down. Oh, thank you. Wonderful, thank you.
Just like to come back at Paul Nuttall over the NHS funding issue.
Yeah.
You said that you would increase funding and social care and NHS out together. Is it not correct that you've actually said that nurses don't need degrees?
Yes.
And nurses, being underskilled, will fund the social care in Britain? And surely, if nurses then are unskilled, they're not going to be able to look after the people who need the care in this country.
No. Firstly, may I speak?
Yes, if we could let Mr. Nuttall speak, thank you.
Thank you. Now I want to see £3 billion a year extra go into the NHS. Yeah, I think it's massively underfunded at the moment. I could literally write next year's headlines today, and it will be NHS in crisis.
Paul, where would you get extra £3 billion? Because you want to reduce income tax to 20%. There's not enough money coming to NHS. Where are you going to fund this?
Well, it's pretty simple. Firstly, you look at projects which are vanity projects, like, let's scrap HS2, which is going to cost £90 billion every... We have a foreign aid budget which is running at £30 million every single day. Now, look, I don't have a problem handing foreign aid over to countries that actually need it, where there's a humanitarian crisis or there's an Ebola crisis. But we shouldn't be giving foreign aid to countries like India, which has its own space programme, which has more millionaires and billionaires than ourselves.
Does that not indicate that you're not internationalist?
Dr. Ali, let me finish. That's our taxation. Let's spend it on the NHS. And as for nurses, we have a shortage of nurses in the health service at the moment. That's why we're bringing people in from other countries. There is nothing wrong with the old state-enrolled nurse. We don't want to have a system whereby people say it's too posh to wash. It worked before, it can work again.
I'm going to let Dr. Ali come back on that. Thank you, thank you. I'm going to let Dr. Ali come back on that point. Thank you.
Look, we want best for everything. When it comes to teaching our children, we want to have best qualified teachers. And when it comes to health, we want to have best qualified health carers. And same thing is with nurses and doctors. No, Paul Nuttall's party wants to privatize NHS. If forget that Stoke-on-Trent, average household has a disposable income of just over £12,000. And if there's a private hip operation, it costs £11,000. A bypass operation costs £30,000. Where on earth people in Stoke-on-Trent going to afford that? He basically wants to privatize NHS. And we are not in a position to have that.
Thank you, Dr. Ali. I'm going to go to the gentleman in the second row with the red sports top on. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Martin. A question to all candidates. And from personal experience, I'll declare an interest. My partner is a Greek national and is a nurse at the Royal Stoke, and was subject to some rather nasty abuse a couple of days after the EU referendum. So I'd like to ask, what is your message to those EU nationals living in this constituency? Many of them are working within the NHS, both as nurses and as doctors and as healthcare assistants. What would be your message to them in light of both the decision on the 23rd of June, but also going forward in terms of their own future here in Stoke?
Thank you, sir. I'm going to start this time on, thank you. I'm going to start on the right here. If we can keep our messages brief, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to encourage your partner, and I believe that she'll be very welcome to remain here. He. So there's no problem. There's no problem at all. I mean, I'm very much in favour of Brexit, and I think that those that are legally here should be allowed to stay here.
Thank you. Mr. Furness.
Well, I was in favour of Brexit, and if Europeans are here doing a good job, well, good for that. That's all I have to say on that. And if they're here legally, then there's no problem at all.
Councillor Snell.
the first thing I'd like to say to them is thank you, because, you know, sorry, Nick, because our health service and our public services rely heavily on Europeans coming here, working hard, paying their taxes. So I want to say thank you. But what is, and my day job is with Unison, so I spend a lot of time talking to public sector workers, including nurses and healthcare workers in hospitals. And the one thing that they want is some stability. They want to know what is going to happen, because they haven't been given anything. They haven't been told what's going to happen to them as a result of Brexit. And that's partly because there is no plan from the government, and that's partly because the issues about individuals' lives are being kicked to the curb while the big headline arguments are being made in Westminster. And we need to remember that, because, you know, the decisions that we take will affect individuals' lives. And how can we expect people to plan for their futures if they don't know what their status is going to be in the UK? So the thing that I would say to your partner is that I will fight to make sure that we get the information, that we get the stability, and that he has the right to stay and work here and continue the excellent work that I'm sure he's been doing already.
Thank you, Councillor Snell. I'm assuming that following the intergalactic spaceport, you're okay with...
I'm fine. I'm fine with everything. I think good luck. Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, I voted for out. I don't know. The reason really was about democracy. Really, I just felt I just don't think much of the European Union in terms of its democratic institutions. So I'm a big fan of Parliament, but I'm not answering the question, am I?
You've answered it very well, thank you. Councillor Brereton.
Thank you. And I'm very sorry to hear that your partner was subject to that abuse. I think it's unacceptable, that sort of behaviour in our society. But, you know, I think we do need to give certainty to those people from Europe who are living in this country. And that's why within the 12-point plan that's been set out by the Prime Minister, one of the key aims is to ensure that EU nationals living in this country have those rights. And just as people from this country working in the EU have those rights as well. And that's one of the most important things to ensure that those rights are protected.
Mr Nuttall, you probably know the European Union better than most of us, so...
Yeah.
If we could let him answer the question, thank you.
Okay, I tend to concur with everything that the panel have said. People should be allowed to remain. And they're protected anyway by something called the Vienna Convention. But beyond that, I also implore the European Union to come to an agreement to ensure that the million expats who are living in Spain and Italy and Portugal and Greece and everywhere else also have the right to remain. And this is a negotiation that needs to go forward and go forward pretty quickly.
Thank you, Mr Nuttall. Dr. Ellie.
Well, what you said, that's very sad. This happened within this city. Staffordshire Police immediately after referendum did report that there was increase in hate crimes in Staffordshire. And that happened because of the vote massively went towards the Brexit side. One of the reasons I am campaigning for the EU people to have a say on the final deal when it comes to Brexit is this: all those European citizens are living within the UK, all those UK citizens are living within the rest of Europe, they should be given a right to stay. And what happened, that's very sad, and that should have not happened, and I strongly condemn it.
Thank you, Dr. Ali. And finally, Mr. Colclough.
Thank you. I work in a local warehouse, so I have a privilege of working with people from all across Europe, especially Poland and Czechoslovakia. And the message I would want to send to those people and to the NHS workers and to any other European citizens is Britain is an open country. We value their hard work, we value their talents. It's only the noisy, out of touch and malcontented minority represented by the BNP that doesn't. And quite frankly, I can see why they're being consigned to the dustbin of political irrelevance.
Thank you, Mr. Colclough. Gentleman at the front, thank you.
Hi everyone. I'll just tell you a bit about myself. My dad, I come from Stoke. My dad worked at the Nile Street factory, Dalton's, for 30 odd years until the jobs were outsourced to the Far East. My sister trained as a nurse at the North Staffs Hospital. There wasn't any jobs for her, that was under Blair. She ended up in Australia. We've got HS2 coming through this county, completely bypassing us and carving the county in half. We've got London getting all the investment, it seems to be, that up here in the Midlands and the North, we get next to nothing compared to London. How are you going to get good quality jobs back into this constituency in this city? And, you know, forget the crappy words. This is about jobs, and this is about creation and injecting some dynamism into this city again, which has been gone. And to be honest, I don't see how having yet another Labour MP is going to work.
As he finished with a reference to Labour, I think we'll come to you first, Gareth.
Thank you. There's a lot of things that are wrong with the way that the wealth in this country is apportioned. So the South East and London has almost 10 times more spent on infrastructure than the West Midlands. That's got to change. You know, I agree with you about HS2. It's a complete folly that it travels from Birmingham to Crewe without even stopping anywhere in Stoke. And that's an absolute disaster that the government have allowed to happen. And what we should have been doing is making a case with the whole of Staffordshire for a stop somewhere in here so we can harness some of that benefit. In terms of the jobs, I mean, there's the Labour Council previously did a lot of work establishing a Ceramic Valley Enterprise Zone, which I know Jack has continued to work on and will try and take credit for in a moment. And one of the things that we need to do is also have conversations with government about moving some of their stuff out of London. There is a world outside of the M25. Some of you may remember that Keele had something called Phase 3 many years ago. The plan was to bring a government department out into North Staffordshire, because do you know what? You can do government from North Staffordshire as well as you can do it from somewhere sat in London. So I'd be championing that we take more and more of this stuff out of London and bring it to the West Midlands. But it's not just London. Our problem is also that we're sandwiched between Manchester and Birmingham. And Manchester and Birmingham appear to be the new go-to places for anything outside of London. And frankly, that doesn't help us because we're being squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. And what we need to do is we need to work with Manchester and Birmingham to make sure that the benefits that they're deriving are shared with Stoke-on-Trent. We need to make sure that the investment that's coming out of London up the M6 towards us stops here in Stoke-on-Trent and stops in Staffordshire. And as a Labour MP, I will do that. I appreciate you say another Labour MP probably couldn't achieve that. But actually, what we need is somebody that's willing to roll up their sleeves and get stuck in and fight for local people, not somebody that just wants to go and back Theresa May or go down to London to further their own political career.
As we currently have a Conservative government, I'm going to go to Councillor Brereton.
And I totally agree with you. Jobs are absolutely critical for this city. And that's why, as part of my plan, jobs is at the top of that. It's not just about more jobs, though. It's about better jobs, better skilled jobs, and better paid jobs for the people of Stoke-on-Trent. And we're already delivering better jobs. In the last quarter alone, we've seen over half of the jobs that were created were in the IT sector, which has shown we're getting a better quality of jobs in this city. But if you look since 2010, 1,500 more people are now in work in Stoke Central than they were in 2010 under Labour. But you know, that's not far enough. We've still got 6.4% of people in this constituency are unemployed, and that is totally unacceptable. We need to see more of those people being upskilled, getting the skills that they need to get into work. And that's going to be my top priority, to ensure that people are going into work. And as I've said, I've already been delivering jobs in this city. I've delivered the 1,000 jobs in the Ceramic Enterprise Zone over the last year. I want to deliver 8,000 more over the next 5 years. And Smithfield, look at that white elephant of Labour. We've turned that around. Now there's 600 new jobs at Smithfield that have come for people in Stoke-on-Trent. We need to create more jobs in this city.
Thank you. There's a gentleman in the middle there who's been waiting very patiently, waving at me for a while. Thank you.
Can I answer that question?
Of course you can. Sorry. Mr. Nuttall.
Yeah, look, the problem that we've got in this country is that everything is centred around one place. Everything is centred around London, and it's probably the most centralised country in Europe. I mean, this isn't the case with Paris. It isn't the case with Rome or Madrid or anywhere else. Political life, financial life, infrastructure, all the money is spent in one place. Now, Gareth was absolutely right. they do get 10 times more spent on them per head in London on infrastructure. It's actually £5,000 per head in London. It's under £500 here in the West Midlands. And what we need to do is, yes, not just talk about HS2 going through Staffordshire. Let's just scrap HS2 altogether, because it's only there to benefit one place. It's there to benefit London. And there is research right across the world, whether it's on Lille in France or Osaka in Japan. High-speed rail only ever benefits capital cities. Now, what we need here is big infrastructure projects. For example, we need a big house building project. There hasn't been a council house built in Stoke-on-Trent for 20 years. It's insane. And we need to get government departments out of London. And in our manifesto in 2015, for example, we were the first party that said, look, let's take the culture, media and sport department out of London altogether and put it in Manchester. And Jack is absolutely right. We do have a skills shortage in this country, and the way we get around that problem in the future is let's do away with tuition fees for STEM cell subjects altogether. Science, technology, engineering and maths. Let's not have tuition fees at all.
Thank you. I'm actually going to go to Mr Colclough on the end to respond to that. Would you be in agreement with Mr Nuttall on scrapping HS2?
Well, I'll tell you what the Green Party's plan for getting this city's economy going, and that is we need to build a proper, modern, integrated transport system. Trams, trains, buses, all working together. That would allow us to create apprenticeships that would let people train for skilled jobs in engineering, in electronics, in administration. We could also work with this great university that's playing host to us tonight. We were looking to make sure that every contract that could would be awarded to a Stoke-on-Trent or Staffordshire company, so that work came to people who were doing jobs here.
And would you scrap HS2?
Well, we would scrap HS2. I'm not a supporter of HS2. We would use a HS2, what was going to be a HS2 site before the council spent a lot of money not succeeding in a bid. We would use that site as the starting point for our integrated transport system.
Thank you, Mr Colclough, and thanks for your patience, Dr Ali.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We want
you prepared to?
down here, Chair.
Yes, we'll come to you, don't worry. So, Dr Ali.
I'm not in favour of scrapping HS2. There a lot of money has been spent, and that's an attempt to spread business hubs to cities like Leeds, Manchester, Liverpool, coming business to north. So there's more connectivity and there's more capacity. When it comes to the job security, I told you what we did actually. When we were in coalition, we increased apprenticeship. We created 2 million apprenticeships, so there are more people who are trained, they're highly skilled, and they can take up British jobs. When it comes to the threat to the British jobs and threat to jobs in Stoke-on-Trent, I told you I visited British Islamic Confederation the week before last, and they feel high degree of uncertainty about the jobs. There are 1,300 jobs here in Portrees within Stoke-on-Trent Central constituency. They're not sure what's going to happen to them. The biggest threat to the jobs within Stoke-on-Trent and within the country is basically exit strategy of Theresa May's government, which is being supported by UKIP and Labour Party. Don't forget, we do 50% of our trade with European Union, and 3 million of our jobs depend on our trade with European Union. That's all going to be at threat, and we don't want. That's what I'm campaigning again. I want people to have a say on final deed, whether they want to accept exit from the single market or whether they want to stay in. Don't forget, the vote in June 2016 was on the basis of misinformation that we would be still part of the single market, but we are now being told, we are being now told that we're not going to be part of that.
Just to be clear, Dr. Ali, just to be clear, you would advocate a second referendum to give the British people a say on whether or not they're happy with the deal that's been done.
Because all the referendum result was on the basis of misinformation. I want people...
Excuse me, I'm just going to take a quick poll. Hands up if you want a second referendum on the EU and the deal that's going to be done. Hands up if you don't want a second referendum. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, I think I'm going to come to Mr. Furness to come back in.
The official Monster Raving Loony Party would like to bring some jobs into the area by, and I'm writing policy on the hoof here.
So is UKIP, that's fine.
We would move the Houses of Parliament to Stoke. The whole And that would save £4 billion, which is what it's going to cost to renovate the Houses of Parliament. We would move and build a new place for the Parliament up here, and that would be more representative for the country as a whole.
Sounds like a Sentinel campaign, so great.
Vote the Raving Loony Party, you know it makes sense. Vote
Thank
for
you,
insanity.
thank you. Mr. Furness.
I'd like to point out the British National Party policy is to scrap tuition fees for all students, for all courses. We also want to scrap HS2, complete waste of money. We believe in training our own people, but what the career politicians on this panel have not mentioned is the devastating effect on jobs of the host population by immigration.
Wrong.
We need a moratorium. We need a moratorium on immigration now.
Thank you. And last but by no means least, Mr. Davies.
So, if I was elected MP, I think that would be rather a shock.
Yes.
But nevertheless, I've got a very clear vision of what I'd like to do here in Stoke. My intention is to bring the kingdom of God here into Stoke. And if that was to happen, that would bring its own prosperity and blessing to this place.
That would be a miracle.
Excuse me, my thought has...
Shall we move on, Mr. Davies? Yes, the next question.
Well, I just wanted to quote, in the Bible it says that the blessing of the Lord, it makes rich, and it adds no sorrow. And that's my intention, to bring the kingdom of God here, and that in itself will bring blessing and prosperity, so that it'll put London into the shadows.
Super, thank you. The lady in the centre here, if we could... Oh, which... Oh, he's still... Of course he is. I'm ever so sorry. I do apologise. We got sidetracked. Carry on, sir.
I'm grateful, Mr. Tideswell. I was waiting. You said patiently, but impatiently.
You've been very patient. Thank you.
First of all, as Mick Temple started off very well, and he talked about the EU referendum, and that would impact upon voting on 23rd of February. I've got some questions for Gareth Snell. The question is this. Basically, as we've said, that the referendum will play a big part, and we know that 70% of Stoke-on-Trent have voted out of the EU. If we see the tweets from Gareth Snell, which say that, let me quote, this is not me, this is Gareth, massive pile of shit. So how do we go forward with somebody who is saying that he doesn't want out of the referendum, he doesn't want out of Europe, and then moving on, not only is the issue Brexit, but it's also he's sexist. If you look at his recent tweets, he's got some sexist comments. I just want some comments off Mr. Snell, because I think he uses inappropriate relation. If you look at the wording, you see he's got a massive pile of Brexit on Twitter.
Thank you, sir.
And also, just one last point, and another question for Gareth Snell is that
can we just have the one question?
Okay,
thank you very much. Thank you. Can I just come in there, Gareth, because one of the questions that was emailed to us was, so I'll read it out because it actually dovetails with what you've just said, sir. It gets it out of the way. Does Gareth Snell wish, with hindsight, that he hadn't tweeted about a sloppy Brexit being a pile of you-know-what, criticised the Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn, and written numerous other abusive, profanity-laden, some might say sexist tweets, which simply aren't becoming of a candidate seeking elected office?
Do you want to use mine? Let's take them in order. Firstly, on Brexit, I, like the Conservative candidate, supported the Remain campaign, and I, like the Conservative candidate, have made it very, very clear that Stoke-on-Trent Central made its voice loud and I will respect that, and as the Member of Parliament, I will trigger Article 50. I will not do anything to frustrate the will of the people, because that is not how democracy works in this country.
What about your own MP, Gareth? How did he vote?
Well, how did your MP vote? Because you don't live in the constituency either, Jack. And I think
Well,
Ruth Smeeth, who was over there, voted to trigger Article 50, as did
your
the other
MP in
two.
Newcastle voted against the will of the people,
And
didn't
he was wrong to do so. And he was absolutely wrong to do so, because let's be clear, members of Parliament are there to represent the views of their constituents. And Paul failed to do that.
I just have to say that they're not. Members of Parliament are not there as delegates of their constituents. They are there as representatives, and they are perfectly, constitutionally, right to be able to express their own opinion. They don't
But you know, you are not entitled to say word S.
If we could let Mr. Snell answer the question, because the gentleman's question actually
that's fine.
began on Twitter.
So I mean, Professor Temple's point aside, if my constituents were to overwhelmingly tell me that they expected me to do something, I would be expected to go and do that.
Even if your conscience called against it?
But this, I'm not entirely sure that the European Union is a matter of conscience on this. There was a referendum. It wasn't a blown up opinion poll. It wasn't some sort of straw poll in the air. It was a referendum, and members of Parliament were given clear steers in their constituencies by how they should vote. And Paul failed to stick with what his constituents wanted. And I've been very clear that even though I supported Remain, that I would go to London, like Ruth Smeeth has done, like Rob Flello has done, from the city of Stoke-on-Trent, and vote to trigger Article 50. That is what I would do, because that is what I believe a responsible member of Parliament should do. And on the other matters, yes, do you know what? Somewhere, someone much cleverer than me will be writing a course on how not to use Twitter and using me as a prime example of how to. Now, some of the tweets that you've mentioned, yes, I said some very silly things back in 2007. So what's that? Almost 10 years ago. And I apologise for those because it was wrong. And I think I should be judged not necessarily on what I said in 2007, but the actions that I've taken subsequently. As leader of Newcastle Council, I was one of the few people to actively encourage more women to come through in politics. We supported the Independent Sexual Violence Fund that was cut by the Tory County Council. We supported the Independent Domestic Violence Fund that was cut by the County Council. I have been proud to march with sisters from the trade union movement against inequality in our society. And yes, I said some things that were silly, and I should hang my head in shame for that. But I've learned from that. You do a lot of growing up in your 20s, and I know that what I said was wrong, so I hope we can end that there.
Is it fair to say, Councillor Snell, though, that some of those tweets were a lot more recent than 2007?
No, the ones relating to Brexit and Jeremy Corbyn were recent. My Brexit ones came out of sheer frustration at the fact that 4 months after a vote, we had a Prime Minister who was, when asked, what is Brexit, simply said, it is Brexit, or it is red, white and blue Brexit, or it's a hard Brexit and a soft Brexit.
Breakfast is breakfast.
And what we needed was a plan that allowed industry, that allowed people, that allowed our communities to go forward and make decisions about their future. And while the Prime Minister was dithering and vacillating, that could not happen. And my comments on Jeremy Corbyn, look, Jeremy has been to campaign for me, and I'm very grateful for that. With the Labour Party as a family, right? And everyone who is in a good family will know you have your bust-ups, you then dust yourself down and you get on with the job. And let's be clear, the Labour Party, led by Jeremy, is the only party that's going to beat the Tory party. And if we don't want a Tory government, we need to go and elect a Labour government led by Jeremy.
Thank you, Councillor Snell. Just very quickly, Councillor Brereton is going to come back in.
I totally respect the will of the people, and only the Prime Minister has a clear plan to deliver Brexit. She's got a 12-point plan, and all of those points are outlined in her plan, and it's important that that is respected and that we deliver Brexit successfully for the people of Stoke-on-Trent.
Thank you. I think most of the candidates want to have a quick say on this, so I'm going to go to Paul.
Well, I've campaigned for Brexit all my life. And, you know, I'm one of the reasons that we got the referendum in the first place. You know, if it wasn't for UKIP, we wouldn't have forced Cameron into offering the referendum that he never wanted to give. And what I want to see is the Brexit that everyone knew that they were voting for. Now, Dr. Ali says, well, of course, they didn't know they were voting to leave the single market. Well, that's just utter nonsense. David Cameron said, if you vote to leave the EU, you're voting to leave the single market. George Osborne said the same. Philip Hammond said the same. Michael Gove said the same.
Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson didn't say that.
Everyone knew that voting for Brexit was leaving the single market because it was about... Hang on, right? It's all about controlling our borders, controlling our own finances, ensuring we can sign our own trade deals and not having to comply with EU regulations and directives. That's what Brexit should mean, and that's what the people of Stoke-on-Trent voted for.
Thank you. Dr. Ali.
When it comes to Brexit, I respect the way people voted. There's no doubt for that. But I basically object the way the people received information. There was a promise there would be £350 million a week coming back, and that would be spent on NHS. Now we've been told it's not coming back. There was promise that we would still be part of single market of European Union. Now we're being told, no, we are not going to be part of single market, and that puts us at threat of loss of jobs. We don't want that one, and that's why I'm standing up. Don't forget, Parliament does not have an effective opposition now. Jeremy Corbyn is not an opposition leader now. They are basically hiding behind Conservative Party, and they're hiding behind UKIP. At least UKIP was honest what they were saying at the time, but Labour was not. What they done now, they let Theresa May's government to have this bill hashed up and sent to Lords, and now at this time, Theresa May's government are threatening Lords, if you bring any amendments, we would abolish you, we would reduce your powers. This is a democracy? No, I don't agree with that. What I want, and my party wants, you to have another say, whether you want to accept the final deal or not.
Thank you, Dr. Ali. Very quickly, if you don't mind, Mr. Colclough. Thank you.
Yeah, I respect the choice made by the British public, but what the Green Party has been doing is fighting to get us the right Brexit, one that protects the NHS, protects workers' rights, and incidentally protects the rights of disabled people, which is something that is not even in the Article 50 agreement the government is trying to shove through.
Thank you. I'm going to come back to Mick Temple just for a second.
Just for a bit of clarity, the suggestion has been made that Brexit's the number one issue. Judging by the heat generated here, that may be so. But for a long time now, for the last 2 or 3 months, the NHS has been far and away the number one issue with the British people that they're concerned about. Yep. Brexit is now number 3, with immigration at number 2. And NHS is 20 points ahead of every other issue, and consistently in the polls. Trust them if you will.
I'd just like to
Mr.
have
Furness.
a very quick comment. Yep. The Labour Party at their last conference, they stood up and said those Labour voters who voted to leave were racist.
No, they didn't.
Yes, they did.
No, they didn't.
They also implied that those who voted leave were less intelligent than those who voted to remain. So they've insulted the people of Stoke.
Thank you, Mr. Furness. Would you like to come back on that, Gareth?
I voted to leave, and I'm pretty stupid. But we wanted in, out, shake it all about, and so I think party policy from the Loony Party was the one that's really won the day.
Thank you.
Thank you. What's more with Brexit, we don't believe in a hard Brexit or a soft Brexit. We believe in an al dente Brexit.
Thank you. Councillor Snell.
Isn't it sad that the Loony Party is as coherent as the Prime Minister when it comes to Brexit?
Where's anybody else's plan?
I believe she's a big fan.
Yeah. What I would say to the London chap, sorry David, I forgot your name for a second, from the BNP, is that what he said about the Labour Party is simply untrue. But then, like all things the BNP, they're miles away from the truth. What I would say is, Jack mentioned Theresa May's 12-point plan. I would urge everybody in this audience to get a copy of it and read it. It won't take you long. It's about one side of A4 and it's not very thick. But it does not once mention ceramics. It mentions other manufacturing as being a low priority. And as far as I can tell, that is where the Prime Minister and the 12-point plan that Jack is so desperate to get to London to support and walk through the Commons to vote for, wants to relegate the historic manufacturing base of this city.
Well, I don't think you've read it, Gareth, because the plan is about this thick, and it has a whole load of information about
what does it say about ceramics?
European Union.
What does it say about ceramics?
You know, it's got in about...
What does it say about ceramics?
Well, if you'd let me finish, it's about pursuing a bold and ambitious free trade agreement so that our ceramics industry can trade
you're
with
supporting
the
him,
European
actually.
Union, and that is the most important thing to ensure that we preserve jobs in this city to continue to trade with the European Union. But all of these other candidates, they might talk about Brexit, they might not even support Brexit, but what our plan is, we've actually got a plan, and we're delivering Brexit. Only the Prime Minister is delivering Brexit.
You haven't got a plan.
Thank you. And finally, just to move us on, I'm going to go to Mr. Davies in the corner very quickly, just 30 seconds. You want to respond to this?
Yes, well, as I said earlier, we're very much in favour of Brexit. Regarding the single market, if we have to in order to be a part of that, if we have to continue to pay into the EU and abide by all their regulations, we're not willing to do that.
Thank you. I'm going to move to the lady that I've put off a couple of times. She's there with the glasses. Thank you.
Somebody behind. Somebody behind you.
No, there's somebody behind. Sorry, I will come to you. No problem at all.
Hello. As the BNP and UKIP candidate mentioned tuition fees, I thought I'd ask all the candidates how you'll represent the thousands of students from Keele and Staffordshire University when the higher education bill gets back down to the House of Commons and TEF is now linked to fees.
Thank you. Right. If we're going to go along the panel, just for the sake of brevity, everybody gets 10 seconds. How are you going to represent those students, Mr. Davies?
We'd support them. We would introduce free tuition. And yeah, but that's what we intend to do.
Thank you, Mr. Davies. Thank you, Mr. Furness.
Our policy is no tuition fees for students, free. And we support the students. We believe that it's the lifeblood of this nation. We need to train our own people.
Thank you.
We believe in the 3 R's: reading, writing, and rock and roll.
Do you believe in rock and roll, Gareth?
I certainly believe in it. I can't say I've heard much recently. I mean, I would represent, Keele and Staffs have a proud tradition of campaigning in this community for things that are fair and just and socially equal. So, as the Member of Parliament for Stoke-on-Trent Central, I would want to sit down with you and work out what it is that I can do to help you. It's not about me telling you what I'm going to do for you. It's about me asking you what I need to do for you and then going away and doing it. And that's what I would do.
Thank you, Gareth.
Our university here, Staffordshire University, is a fantastic university, and I think we've seen massive investment in this university, and that's what we need to continue to see in our education system, providing more investment to help create better courses, better education for people right across our country. And we also need to ensure that there's more investment in our universities to open it up to more people within our society. We need to open it up to more disadvantaged people to have the opportunity to go to university. And that's exactly what the government is doing.
Thank you.
It is. We need to see investment in our universities.
Do you want to come back on that? He's paid £27,000.
Well, we need to see investment in our universities, and with the current system of fees that we have now in place, nobody who goes to university will have to pay until they're earning £21,000. I think that is a significant amount of money.
Thank you. How would you support students, Paul?
But I was quite lucky because I went to university in the final year of grants.
Did you come here,
Got
Paul?
a PhD.
Did I hear that? Is that right?
Gareth, let's not get
4
into
weeks,
personal
I think.
insults, I mean,
4 weeks.
Come on, let's be better than that, eh? Yeah, I did. I came here for a very short period of time, actually, and then realised quickly I was on the wrong course. So, but no, I came to university in the final year of the major government, and I was lucky enough to get a full grant. And I know if I was 18 now, I wouldn't go to university because of my background, and I would be too afraid to rack up the kind of debt that you're racking up, being a working class lad. I want to see a beginning of, I want to see stem cell subjects. Yes. I said stem cell. That's what I said. Okay, yeah, very good. But I want to see a reduction in tuition fees. I want to see them abolished for those subjects. I also want to see a longer-term ambition of doing away with tuition fees for all courses and then returning to a system of grants for poor working-class students so that they get the opportunity to go to university that they don't have at this present moment in time.
Thank you, Mr. Nuttall. Thank you. Can I just ask Dr. Ali, tuition fees?
Well, when we came into coalition, everybody knows what the situation of finances there. We had a tuition-free education for everyone. That was our policy. It still is our policy, and when you get a chance, we deliver it. Don't forget that note from Liam Byrne, who was Chief Secretary to Treasury. He left a note for the incoming Chief Secretary Treasury that there's no money. We were put in a compromised situation. Labour Party's Prime Minister at the time, Gordon Brown, set up an independent commission headed by Lord Brown, and he came up with tuition fee. Conservative Party wanted to introduce tuition fee. Labour Party also wanted to increase tuition fee, and we didn't win election. But what we did actually, we did the next best thing, that was the student loans on a very minimum interest rate, and nobody would be able to pay unless they were able to make £21,000 a year. And if anyone is not able to pay by the time they reached 51 years of age, then they would not be paying any of this
Thank you,
loan.
Dr. Ali. And finally, just very quickly...
And no, I comment. And the other thing we did actually, to strengthen the education, we introduced pupil premium. So schooling is good, strong, so when these children go to university, they are able to have better education, and even if they have to take loan, they'll be able to have a good job afterwards, and they'll be able to pay it back.
Thank you. I'm keen to get 2 more questions in before we finish. So, Mr. Colclough, thank you.
I'll declare an interest because I'm a part-time student at Staffs. I would not support the higher education bill in its current form. I would also be campaigning to reduce student fees, and I would also be campaigning to support mature students, because we need learning to be something people can do all through their lives, not just when they're 18.
Thank you. Very quickly, I'm going to go to 2 more people in the audience. I'm sorry I can't get to everybody. I'm going to come to the lady on the front here. If you could direct your question to one of our candidates, that'd be really helpful if we can get an answer. Thank you.
Okay, I've lived in Stoke-on-Trent Central for the majority of my life. I'm 62 this year. Now, I've seen lots of changes when there was jobs very plentiful. Since deindustrialisation, parts of this city have become wastelands. We've got derelict buildings. You've only got to look at the Twyfords along Garner Street that was on fire a few years ago. What is the government, which obviously Jack's represents that political current party,
Who do you put these things?
Else gets elected?
Who do you put these things down to, Doc? Why is that? Why have those things happened?
Well, because nobody has stood up and done anything about them. The people who own the land should be made to take responsibility. They take the profits when the building's there and then walk away and do nothing.
Right.
And leave it a wasteland.
So in it, just sum up
your... what is anybody going to do about it?
Okay, sum up your question then. We'll start with Jack. Thank you. Sum up your question.
So my question is, what would the local council do, and what are they going to do about the problems, about the land that's been abandoned for years? And if anybody else, what ideas have most people got to resolve the problem? Because it seems to be getting worse and worse.
Well, we have a city councillor, so I'm going to go to the city councillor. Thank you. Thank you very much for your question, Jack.
No, I totally agree with you on those sorts of sites. We need to see those brownfield sites redeveloped, and that's why it's important to recognise that that site is part of the housing zone, which is a government programme to bring forward new housing development on those sites. And I'd agree with you on private landowners. We need to take much more action against those, and we are doing. In terms of that site, we're taking action against the owner of that site so that we can bring forward new housing on that site. And let's not forget who represented this city for the last 50 years, as Mick said when we introduced. It's been Labour. And that's why we're in this state, because Labour have consistently not represented this city.
Slight vested interest, but there was a great big plastics fire at a place with loads of illegal dumped waste that I'm kind of worried about for the people living in the Milton area.
I know it's behind my house.
Yes,
worried too.
Are you taking action against whoever was responsible for that?
We are, and I've been involved in that since 2014, trying to push the Environment Agency to take more action on that site, because it's totally unacceptable. It's an illegal waste site. Had over 10,000 tonnes of waste illegally on that site at one point, and that's shocking. We should be taking more action against people like that.
I look forward
and
to
I've been pushing the Environment Agency to do so.
I look forward to the council's response. And finally, I'm going to go to the gentleman with the beard and the red top, who's been waiting very patiently. Thank you.
Thank you. As we know, ISIS often use children as young as 10, maybe even younger. And imagine you were a frontline member of personnel, armed forces. You've got a 10-year-old child in front of you that may have information about a potential bombing. Could you personally tie that child naked to a chair, put a hood over their head, and pretty much drown them by pouring water into their neck? And if you couldn't do that personally, why should you expect a member of our armed forces to do that in your name?
Thank you. Is that question directed at anybody in particular, sir, or? Right, so waterboarding, Mr. Nuttall, where do we stand?
Well, look, I mean, I'm not in favour of torture in any way, shape or form. However, I will say this. If we ended up in a situation whereby we knew there was a dirty bomb which was going to go off in London or Liverpool or Stoke-on-Trent, and we had to ensure that we got that information, then I will put the lives of British citizens and British families and British children over the human rights of any jihadi. Sorry.
Thank you. Does any... I think, just very quickly, do any of the other candidates...
Let me just come back on this one point.
Yep.
You know, that would only be... We'd have to prove that waterboarding actually worked because, you know, there is evidence that it doesn't. However... Hang on.
Then why did you support it?
Hang on, Gareth, let me finish. However, I will say, you know, I would always put the lives and the safety of British citizens over the rights of a jihadi. Always, period.
Thank you. Do you want to come back on that, Gareth?
I mean, I actually feel slightly sick that we've had a question asking if you would advocate waterboarding a 10-year-old, and the UKIP candidate has said yes, essentially he would.
No, I didn't.
No,
I didn't.
No, he didn't say
Don't
that.
put words in my mouth.
No, he didn't say
Don't
that.
put words in my
He didn't say
mouth.
that.
The question,
Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
the question from the audience member was, if you had a 10-year-old that had information, would you waterboard them? And you've just basically said you would. Now, that is absolutely shameful
No, I
and
didn't.
scandalous.
No, I didn't. I said,
Thank you.
If there was a situation and
I'm
we
sorry,
knew
Paul,
there was a dirty bomb about to go off in one of our major cities, I would use any way I could to get the information out of the person.
So
who
the
knew
questioner
it was.
asked if you would be willing to do that to a 10-year-old, and you've just said you would. That is shameful.
No, I didn't. Did I say that?
Absolutely shameful.
Thank you.
Absolute
Thank you.
nonsense, Gareth.
Thank you. Thank you.
I agree.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you from the candidates. Ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, ask Jack Straw. That's a good.
The Loony Party want to bring back witch docking.
Which seems a very good place to leave tonight's debate, ladies and gentlemen. Can I just say thank you so much for being part of it tonight. Thank you for being respectful. And would you please give a round of applause to all of our candidates and to Mick Temple. Do you want to sum up? Just finally, I aren't bothered which way you vote, but if you're part of the constituency like me, just get out and use your vote. That's all I would say. So thank you so much for being with us. Thank you. Of the floor. Ladies and gentlemen, before everybody goes, Mick wants to ask a very quick question. The mics are off. All right, fine. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.